This is Lama Tantrapa. Welcome to the Secrets of Qigong Masters, the talk show brought to you by Academy of Qidao, the first and only school in the world offering professional education in Tai Chi coaching and Qigong coaching. To find out about programs offered at the Academy of Qidao and to learn how you too can become a certified Tai Chi coach or Qigong coach, please visit qigongcoaching.com. This show is also brought to you by Mastery Magazine, promoting the Summit of Qigong Masters, available to you at qigongmasters.com, bringing top Qigong experts in North America and sharing their stories and expertise. Today, I'm delighted to reintroduce to you Michael Winn. He is one of the top experts in Qigong in North America and a good friend of mine who has been extremely influential in Qigong world and well known for his online courses as well as his Qigong and Universal Tao teachings at the Summer University. Welcome to our show, Michael. It's great to have you here.
Good to be back. We did one a few years ago, and I enjoyed that. So hopefully we'll get into some deep stuff. This talk.
Absolutely. And of course, since I mentioned your Summer University, let me ask you the question about this particular program. What is it, and how long have you been doing it for?
This is what I call Healing Tao University, not Universal Tao, Healing Tao University, and it's in the near Asheville, North Carolina, in the Blue Ridge Mountains. And we have a faculty of different teachers, and we have about this summer about 16 different week-long retreats, which cover a wide range of all the Taoist arts, from energetic healing, Qigong, martial arts, Tai Chi, Bagua, to sexual energy cultivation is a topic we're going to discuss tonight. Medical Qigong, just about everything under one roof, and wow. We have a variety of experts there to do that. I started this program back in 1995.
So this year you're going to be celebrating 20 years, eh?
That's right.
And it's been happening every year nonstop?
Every year.
That's amazing. How do you manage to attract enough teachers to teach and enough students to attend?
Let me tell you, it's a miracle. Because most people these days especially tend to want, a cheaper, just a weekend course, something that's closer to them. But once people have a taste of these retreats and they see how much deeper they can go, because a whole concentrated week with no distractions, there's a quantum leap that happens and people get so much energy. 30% of the people who sign up for 1 week retreat end up staying for 2 or 3 weeks. They change their plane, they change their schedule, everything. They just stay on because they're having such an intense experience or growing so fast, or they love all the cool people who show up there. So, but it's been a task, and it's a labor of love. I keep the cost low. A week's tuition is only $4.95. I have not raised it in 10 years. So I'm subsidizing the cost, basically, my nonprofit.
Wow.
So,
well, that's exciting. So I believe that this is the only university of that type in America. I don't know if it's true to say about worldwide, but I haven't heard of any other venue like that in America. Have you?
I believe it is unique. And I intend. Actually, I'm raising the funds right now to actually build my own retreat center with a facsimile copy of the Beijing Temple of Heaven. It looks like a spaceship, a 14th century spaceship, 3 circular roofs, going up. And so that's my plan is to build that, and I think I'll have the money within the next year or so.
Wow, that's really exciting. Yeah. Okay.
So I'm planning to expand my offerings, expand my program, and I think I'll have more funding just to support it as well.
Amazing. What is the funding coming from?
Well, that's a long story. I think it would take too long to describe it here, but I have 3 different streams of funding, which any one of them could fund it completely.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's excellent.
I made some smart investments. Okay.
Well, the smartest investments I've ever made was in relationships. In relationships with great people like yourself, great teachers, great experts in different fields. That's basically the smartest investment that I can claim. But you probably have made some great investments also financially, huh?
I have, yeah. But I'll tell you, it was my Taoist training that allowed me to make those investments. Okay, because the more I cultivated myself, the more aware I became of what you call timelines, or just like a probability of what's going to unfold. So you have a much more clear intuition and guidance from, you can say, from the cosmos as to what's going to succeed and what's not going to make it. And
Wow.
so I picked, we can say, budding green technologies that were beneficial to the planet, that reminded me of kind of like Taoist energetic principles, that I invested in because I thought that nature would support them, and it has. And
Fantastic.
I'll just tell you, one of them is that I'm coming out with a new, my company that I invested in, the first investor. I built the prototype. Um, we're coming out with a new electric car that will be powered not just by electric batteries, but by solar charging. The first electric
Nice.
car in the world like this. And because it's so much double the efficiency of, Tesla or all these other Detroit electrics.
Sure.
And so it's going to revolutionize the entire electric car industry.
You just
And
need to live in Arizona to drive the kind of car, right?
you can also just plug it into your battery, to your plug if you want to. But 1 hour in the sun will drive it 10 miles. So I think a lot of places can get a few hours of sun a day. So
Oh, that's awesome. Can you drive at night?
yeah, if you store enough battery power, sure.
Okay, cool.
No,
And
it's twice as efficient as any other electric car. This is going to be a mass market electric car. You can say the Tesla for the masses. It'll
nice.
cost, after federal subsidies in the U.S., it'll cost maybe 17,500. Very
That's
cheap.
amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah. So it's going
Okay.
to completely blow out the market, and yes, and it will fund my retreat center. Yes.
Wow, wow. So, well, I drive a Prius, so I'm definitely in the market for a much better,
Oh,
more
yeah,
efficient car.
the Prius, that's old technology. Yeah.
Yeah, that's almost 20th century now.
Yeah, that's right. This is coming out at the LA Auto Show in November this year, 2015.
Oh, fantastic. Are you going to go to the show?
No, I don't need to go, but the car will be premiered there, and we have Chinese partners. We got a lot of stuff happening. It's going to go global, but that's just a small part of the company. The motor they have, which is made out of nanocrystals, which reminded me of the Taoist meditation, the microcosmic orbit. Because that's spinning around, but in the middle you have a neutral material, which resembles the core channel of the human body,
Right.
and you have the front and back channels, the fire and water channels, going up the spine and coming down the front. So this motor is based on that principle of those three forces, whereas most motors have a lump of iron in the middle which polarizes and can't stay neutral.
Yes,
But
it has a magnet.
the magnets polarize it, and so
Yeah.
it overheats and it's not very efficient. This motor has an amorphous material that cools in 2 million degrees in 2 seconds before the Earth's magnetic field has a chance to polarize it. So it doesn't get polarized by magnets spinning around it, so it stays neutral. Just the way a human being does when you cultivate your energy, you have a neutral core channel and you have the fire and water channel. So that's why I invested in it, because I looked at this thing and said, this is what I'm doing, and I want to be in a car or a vehicle that does the same thing. So I'm driving along, the car is doing the orbit and I'm doing the orbit, and we're all happy together, okay?
Well, and this is an example of, how they say the art simulates life. Well, this is like a science simulates life, huh?
Exactly. So that's just one of the ways that I'm going to finance the retreat center. But,
Fantastic. Well,
and of course, I think a great benefit to the planet to have a car that's really literally can be off the grid, and does not just burn electricity from coal burning plants or something like that.
oh, definitely, we've got to kill the economy based on fossil fuels.
So this is the solution.
Wonderful.
I mean, there'll be other solutions too, but this one is easily accessible now. It's at low cost.
Wow, very cool. I'm
Yeah.
very excited about that, and I want to thank you for doing this type of work. This is a really great type
For
of
me,
inventions.
I put this out in my newsletter many years ago, about 2008. What's that? 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And I raised the first $2 million to fund the prototype, everything else, from other Taoists. So I call it the Tao Car. Okay, this whole project was started by Taoists who had the vision, saw it, and they put their money, where their mouth was, where my mouth was anyway. And for some of us, it's been a long wait. I put most of my life savings in it at the time, but it's all going to pay back, and it's going to be a great benefit to humanity.
That's amazing. And I have to say that it's tricky to get $2 million out of any Taoists, because most Taoists are not very wealthy.
Well,
So you know some rich Taoists there.
I guess the ones who read my newsletter are a mixture of the rich and the poor, we'll say.
Well, just this morning I was having a conversation with another teacher of Tai Chi and Qigong from California, and he was joking how my focus on abundance through being in the flow, that was the topic of our most recent summit of Qigong Masters. He said, well, you might as well just sell Qigong for the rich and famous. I said, well, that's an interesting idea. I'm sure I know at least one or two teachers who focus on rich and famous, and you probably know them better than me. We can start with Montauk Chia, probably.
No, I wouldn't put him in that category.
No.
But
Well, would you share with us a little bit more about your training system? And I understand that you have the whole methodology of teaching and also framework. What's the framework of your
let me
methodology?
just explain that, Montauk Chia was my first Taoist teacher. And I definitely got my initial inspiration into internal alchemy and sexual practices from him, and I ended up making him famous by writing his first 7 books.
Right.
That was a mutual sharing. But then I went much deeper. I went to China many times. I stayed with many teachers. I actually changed his style of teaching. He started learning from me all these other Qigong forms that I had learned, and he started realizing that's a better way to teach his, meditations and things. So we are more like spiritual brothers now and friends who just exchange and trade. He's not. I don't really see him as my master or my teacher. That's been the case for the last 20 years. But I respect him and respect, his contributions to sort of breaking open the field and popularizing esoteric Taoism.
Right.
That's what he did. And he's been tirelessly on the road for 35 years, doing that. So, I'm grateful to him, and I've really developed my own methodologies from working so much with Westerners. I saw that they needed different methods than what the Chinese had. They had to be altered for Westerners because we have very different body minds. We have very different psyches. And we have a very different relationship, in particular, to our sexual energy. Mm-hmm. We live in a culture where, it's like, get your sexual energy out there, and fulfill yourself. This is the culture of the individual, seeking fulfillment. And the Chinese completely suppress, not completely, but let's just say 50% suppress the individual and promote the collective mind and the group face. That's why they have a big thing about their face.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a very different, they have their individual side, of course, but by and large it's suppressed, in favor of your group role, group harmony. And it's the reverse in the West.
So in a sense, it's kind of Confucianist / Taoism. And I understand that Taoism developed, in a sense, as a counterbalance for Confucianism in China.
That's right. The Taoists were the part of the Chinese culture that would go out to the mountains and they would flip the bird at the emperor and say, screw you, I'm just, the emperor that rules me is the emperor of nature, not the emperor of men.
Exactly.
So they were the rebels, the independent thinkers, okay?
Right.
They did not like being controlled, and, but some of the sects made deals with the emperor, and basically they said, okay, we'll pronounce you the son of heaven if you build temples for us, okay? So there was like kind of a deal, a swap of favors and for conferring, spiritual authority on the emperor. You have to understand that most of the dynasties that were overthrown in China were overthrown by Taoists. The Taoists who started rebellions because they knew about power. They understood how power worked, and they could apply it politically if necessary. And so, this is why Chairman Mao tried to destroy the Taoists because he knew they had power. Okay. When he came to power, so that greatly weakened the presence of the Taoist in China,
Right.
But during his long march and during his campaign to get to power, he was using Taoist consultants and psychics and many other people to try and get to power. So he knew about them.
Well, and obviously then Taoists didn't like Mao as much, so a lot of them migrated to Taiwan with Kuomintang.
That's right. Some of them did. That's right. And other ones just went underground, or just went in the mountains, or just did their own thing. Yeah.
Really tough to be underground in China, where they didn't leave a stone unturned.
Yeah. Let's focus in on the sexual thing in China, because sexual cultivation had a bad reputation in China
Huh.
because some of the Taoists would use it to, kind of a sexual vampirism. And the Buddhists were always attacking the Taoists. They're trying to get the state money, from the emperor and saying these guys are, like vampires, sexual vampires, blah, 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 blah. Even though a lot of those emperors wanted to know Taoist sexual secrets in order to handle all their concubines and live longer and, all that stuff.
Right.
So,
I was just watching the TV series The Marco Polo literally last night. And I was like, there's a lot of concubines there.
It's made by who?
Weinstein Company.
I went in 1985, my first trip to China. I followed Marco Polo's route all across China. I spent 4 months.
Oh.
Okay. So I've tracked that entire thing to explore and see how much it had changed. I used Marco Polo's travels book as my guidebook across China.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating. And so that was in what, 1995?
No, 1985.
Oh, 85. Okay. Wow.
I've been around a while. Okay.
No kidding. So what was your experience like in terms of encountering any sexual practices in China?
Oh, it was all suppressed. The communist, the Chinese, everything. There was no sexual teachings at all. That was completely undercover. Okay. So when the book I wrote for Montauk Chia with him, I co-authored it with him, Taoist Secrets of Love, that finally got translated into Chinese. A lot of Chinese started reading that to go, oh, wow, here are the practices. Here's how you actually do it. Okay. And later on, I met people who started teaching it. This is many years later. So starting about 10 or 15 years ago, it started to become popular again. As things loosened up, the Chinese got wealthier, more middle class, more Western ideas came in. They started dressing sexy, then all that was allowed. It started to come back in. Sexual clinics started to open up. But you have to understand, there's a very high level of sexual dysfunction in China. Okay? I've studied all the sociological studies on Chinese men, and there's erectile dysfunction is running as high as 30%. Okay?
Severe.
And I'm sure this is because of the cultural suppression, this group phase, this group energy thing, because sexual energy is very individual. And there's a very famous Yugoslav filmmaker named Dusan Makovec. He did a film called Mysteries of the Organism, which was basically about Wilhelm Reich. And what he showed is that all across the planet, the more totalitarian the culture is, the more sexual repression there is. And the more sexual freedom that people have, the more liberal their political system. So it's a direct relationship, because you need a liberal political system if you're going to have sexual freedom, because sexual energy creates unfoldment of your own individual desires, and it doesn't easily mesh with an oppressive political regime.
And it also facilitates individuation as opposed to being the keg in a wheel.
Exactly.
Well, and of course in China, until recently, and probably still even now to some extent, there has been a pretty strict law of having only one child per family. So that probably also put a damper on sexual experience, at least to some extent.
They give free condoms and everything else. They were trying to stop. They were trying to have birth control things. So that was all available. That was not going to stop people from having sex. But
if you have an erectile,
just that people are very, in general, psychically suppressed. This is why you find that Qigong has a reputation in China for being dangerous, and that you have many more documented cases of Qi deviations in China than you have in the West.
Right.
But what they call a Qi deviation in China is actually just somebody feeling their own personal emotions, as opposed to
suppressing. They're no longer swept under the rug.
Yeah, so that's called crazy in China. Okay.
Right. Well, and psychological studies and understanding of human psyche seem to be not very well developed in Oriental medicine, to my understanding. Studying Tibetan medicine, I see that there is a lot more understanding of psyche there than in Chinese medicine.
It's worse than that. I have friends who are professors of psychology who have been invited to teach in China, okay, because their Chinese universities are interested as an intellectual exercise. Oh, what is this Freudian stuff? What is all this psychology? This whole thing you call self-help and psychology, what is it? But you will never find a Chinese person going for counseling or therapy. Okay?
Because
why?
they lose face.
they lose face. It's basically saying you're broken, admitting that you're not fitting into the collective group. And if you need to go get help, that means you're broken and you're not part of that. So nobody wants to admit that. And so they basically have a completely dysfunctional mental health system.
And it's obviously not very popular to be cuckoo. So if anybody finds out that you're seeing a therapist, man, you're going to be written off.
Right. That's the problem. That is the problem. So no one gets help except through their family or whatever. You know, they basically have to work it out, and you're told what you need to suppress. You're having problems. You need to suppress that.
Well, and so given that, I would imagine that when you were developing your own system that was geared more towards the Westerners as opposed to the Chinese, you had to put your own spin or take your own slant on the study of the sexual arts. So what was that?
Well, that took me a while to really, experiment on, literally hundreds, thousands of students over time to find out what worked and what didn't work, okay? But first of all, I had to get a really clear picture of what is the difference between sexual energy, which in Chinese they call Jing Qi. It's a particular type of Qi, okay? It has more density and more volatility than, say, heart Qi, liver Qi, other types of biological Qi, okay? Or the kind of normal energy that runs the body-mind, okay? So I had to look at this and say, okay, let's just break it down first and see what is that type of Qi doing that the other types of Qi are not doing, and let's build a model to understand how that's working so that then we can decide how are we going to integrate that into a Western body-mind, okay?
Okay.
What I discovered is that the Jing Qi, the sexual energy, has two main qualities that other types of Qi do not have. Okay, one is that, as I mentioned, is volatile. It will amplify just about anything you put it with. So it's just to say you're feeling the emotion of anger. If you combine sexual energy with that, it can turn into rage. Or if you're just feeling happy and you add sexual energy to that, or you may go into bliss. Okay, so it's neutral. It'll just amplify anything that it's mixed with. But for most people, they have no way to manage their emotions, much less how they're mixing it. And so they're very... Then there's the second quality of sexual energy comes into play, which is it acts like super glue. In other words, it has a binding effect between whatever it comes into contact with. So couples who've had a sexual relationship and try and break up know this very well, how hard it is. Okay, we're not working out, we don't love each other, blah, blah, blah. And then they discover, wait a minute, this isn't so easy. We're sexually still bonded. How do we break those sexual bonds? This is one of the most difficult things that people face, okay? I can't tell you how many times I've been counseling people for 35 years. This is one of the number one problems, okay? Apart from like the meaning of life, how do I find the meaning of life? Number two is, how do I get rid of this other person? I'm stuck with them, we're like glued together, okay?
Yeah. Okay.
This is all of the property of the Jing Qi, okay? That it's so powerful, so volatile, and yet at the same time, it will bond, and often in unconscious ways. And what happens then is that people are having sex, and then all these unconscious patterns that have been bonded at some point get triggered and get played out unconsciously on the person with whom they're having the sexual relationship with, and that can mean all hell breaks loose, or it can mean it's dysfunctional, it can mean all kinds of things, okay?
Or they're in ecstasy.
But in general, the whole thing with erectile dysfunction, the cure is not a drug. Let's just say it's not generally a physiological problem. That's
right. It's all in the head.
That's a very small percentage of the problem is a physiological dysfunction, okay? No. And there have been studies done showing that actually just doing Qigong and getting exercise and moving will do as much for you as Viagra, okay? Just getting your Qi circulating in general, sexual energy and your blood flow, which is basically liver blood flowing into the kidneys and causing the erection, okay? So if you get all that moving, it'll start to happen. But
right. But it doesn't address anything psychological.
People are so stressed out, they're so stuck in their heads in this information culture that their Qi is stuck in their heads and they don't know how to get down into their sexual center, okay? So many people. And then they think they have a medical problem. They don't. They have an energetic problem.
They're stuck in the
Okay.
head. I often observe that stuckness in the head is associated with a particular pattern of holding tension that requires tension in the neck and shoulders, so the energy doesn't flow freely between the upper dantian or the energy center in the head and the rest of the body. And of course, the person doesn't get stuck in the body. No, they get stuck in the noggin.
Right.
And this holding pattern is also a manifestation of a particular state of consciousness, which seems to be prevalent in this culture. And so then we basically see how this is a really complex issue.
Right. And what people call state of consciousness, they associate with their head rather than their whole body.
Right.
So my whole focus, my trainings and my teachings, everything has been on whole body enlightenment as opposed to head enlightenment.
Marvelous.
Because there are plenty of people out there teaching meditation and stress relief techniques that basically think the problem is in the head, okay? And we have to change the brain, and we have to do all these things for the brain. And yeah, of course, the brain reflects a lot of these problems, and yes, you want to relax the brain and get it functioning, left brain, right brain, all these things, but that's hardly adequate. Okay?
Well, what happens is that the person may even experience the brain enlightenment, but they're not walking the talk. They're not an embodiment of this enlightenment. They can talk the talk nicely. And so that's experienced as one of the prevalent issues among some people who claim to be enlightened.
So I happen to share your view on this, okay? So
Great.
I just tell people, I said, look, they're having an authentic experience, but I feel that it's partial. And that it's hard to sustain also, if the body and the Jing level, which is including the Jing Qi, the sexual energy, is not feeding that, then, it can be very ephemeral. Like they have this peak experience, they have this vision, they see all the heavens, it's all totally an authentic experience, but they cannot stabilize it, they cannot hold it because their whole body is not there to hold it for them. It's just like it's like astral TV. They see it, they get to watch the show for a little while, and then click, the show's over, and it goes down. The tube goes down to a little dot instead of being all the colors and the light and the whole show.
Yeah, it's like using the terminology of Indian chakras. You can say that you can't really have a consistent or persistent enlightenment if you enlighten just one of the chakras. Now, what happens about chakras, and also we can talk about dantians, is that people often say, oh, you just need to open your heart. And you probably know some Qigong masters and teachers who are all about just love and opening the heart, and that somehow is going to do the trick. Now, what's your opinion of that?
This is a complex topic, so let's just break it down. The Chinese term for the Western called the body mind is called the heart mind in Chinese. So it means the heart is the ruler of all the organ spirits. And if you look at the 12 meridians, the 12 major meridians, 8 of them are from 4 elements, and 4 of them are the fire element, which is the heart, and is the ruler there with the small intestine as the prime minister, and the pericardium and the triple warmer as the backup, kind of delivery of the fire to the whole system and managing it. So there are 4 fire elements. Okay, so it clearly has a management role, we could say energetically, in the model of Taoist internal medicine and Chinese medicine. Okay, but it's not enough to open the heart only, obviously, because if, for example, the main polarity with the heart is the kidneys, which is the water element. So this is alchemy, basic alchemy 101, fire and water. These are the 2 volatile elements. Okay, you have to have both of them into harmony. Okay,
and balance.
So if you have a lot of heart fire, but you haven't opened up the kidneys, or you don't connect that heart fire with the water and have them in a harmonious relationship, that a lot of that heart fire can just disperse energy. It could go to the head. It could go to arrogance. It could be mismanaged,
or it can backfire.
Right. You can go to excess with it. Okay. That's what the Chinese say. Excess joy or excitement can be, exhausting to your chi. Mm-hmm. So that's why you have to look at the whole picture. Okay. And this relationship shows up medically as well. So a lot of we know that type A people have a higher percentage of heart attacks, okay? And because their excess yang, their fire energy is driving them to accomplish. And so the conventional, and my father, by the way, is a heart surgeon, okay? I mean, he's passed now, but I grew up with the whole Western medical heart archetypes, okay? And so I know it very well.
Mm.
But the Westerners see these heart attacks as a result of not exercising hard enough, or a weak heart or something else. The various things. Some they have a whole range of possible reasons for it. But and what I have seen, and from my studies, is that actually these people are not dying because of a weakness in their heart. They're dying because their kidneys will no longer balance out this excess fire. It's actually caused by a dysfunction in the water element, which has been burned out. They have no more yin to buffer all that fire. So the problem is really in the kidneys and the water element, okay, which has been abused, and finally closes down and says, okay, I don't have the will to live anymore because I've been cooked out, okay? And then the heart seizes up. It's like a car with no oil. And the problem is not the motor. The motor's running fine. There's no oil now, okay? The problem was the oil, okay?
So the coolant, if you will.
Yeah, the kidneys are supplying the water, the radiator system, and the lubricant is the oil. That's like the sexual energy. That's the Jing Qi, okay? It's denser than the water, okay? So kidney water is not the same thing as Jing Qi, okay? So the Jing Qi is produced, I think, from all the organs together, okay? This is why the sperm and the egg are, the production, take the whole body to awaken and invigorate them, okay? So they represent the kind of the essence of the human being at the Jing level. The Jing level is just the level of substance, okay?
Right. So not to confuse Jing with Jing Qi.
Right. But if you take your Jing Qi and you infuse it, okay, into your sperm, okay, recycle it into all the organs, and then those organs produce a higher level of Jing, okay? So you can take that Jing Qi, that sperm energy, circulate it to the whole body rather than just throwing it out, ejaculating it out like, crazy, whatever, which is what most guys do. Then you begin to build up the charge and the Jing in all the organs, and then the organs build a better sperm, okay? A stronger sperm. So this is one of the keys to having a healthy baby. Okay?
Speaking of organs building sperm, we're talking about not physically building sperm, which obviously happens in testes, but we're talking about contributing energy to the development of healthy semen.
Oh yeah, just because it's located there, doesn't the whole body energy is flowing into that process.
Right.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to say. All the organs are contributing to the manufacturing of the sperm in the testicles. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's not just like the testicles are cut off from the rest of the body, and they have a little sperm factory there. No, they're getting all the nutrients and the workers and the energy, and the lights are on and the electricity is flowing because of all the rest of the body. Okay,
right.
So that quality of the sperm is what will determine the constitution of the child that is born, along with the mother's egg. How strong? See, the eggs are in there at birth. They come in from the grandmother, or from the mother, okay, to the child. So they're there at birth, but they have to be ripened. So the energy from the mother is ripening it, it's maturing those eggs, okay, and charging up the chi in it. So when my wife and I had a child, and I have a 1-year-old, it's actually a year and 3 months now.
Congrats.
And I had this child at age 63, and I was having people telling me, "Oh, you're so old. This kid's gonna have defective DNA. He could be retarded. Blah blah blah." This is all this stuff based on studies on people who drink alcohol and smoke too much and everything, and they destroy their DNA by the time they're older, and so of course they have broken DNA. But if you're doing Qigong and internal alchemy and all these other things, you have very strong DNA, okay? And the constitution of my child is incredible. This kid is so powerful and so strong, like, scary, okay? How healthy he is, okay?
Well, and you're going to live until ripe old age, at least 100 years or more, because you do all the Qigong practices. So it doesn't matter that you now at
That's a
64.
that's a negative thought form. Only 100. No. I have a
I said at
150
least.
club. Yeah, but no. That's too much in the range of everybody else because you see now you're still in the group mind and you're just buying into their thought forms. Oh, 100 is like a long life. To me, that's still you're dying young. Okay, so I have a
Oh,
150 club, and that means that you completely abandon all the other thought forms about death that are basically killing people in the culture, and you are now accepting that and telling your body we are going to live to be 150 minimum, and then we'll reevaluate at 150 to see whether we still have a destiny or a mission here, and we'll decide if we want to live longer then.
exactly.
But
Yeah, well, I've been to places, for example, like Chechnya, that are populated with a lot of people who are over 100 years of age. As a matter of fact, I remember visiting one place where most men lived to be 100 years. Maybe not most. The ones who died before, they said, well, if you died before you're 100 years of age, you're not a serious man. So
yeah,
there was some
so
peer pressure.
this is also a case of where the cultural norm influences the outcome. Because
Right.
it's like now everybody thinks, okay, you're supposed to live to be 80, so that's the average. Okay, it used to be 50. 100 years ago. Okay, and everybody died at 50. So this is the thought form. It's
Right.
like everybody's like lemmings. Okay, we're supposed to die. They go right into the sea at that age. They start decaying, and a few outlive it. But that's the average. You
Yeah.
have to get out of that thought form. Okay, it's very, very pernicious. It gets in very unconsciously. You think, oh, I'm old. Oh, body, you're supposed to be getting old, and then you start killing yourself, start dying because you've commanded them to.
That's what he's supposed to be doing.
So that's why I'm telling them minimum 150. Don't even think of dying before then.
Right.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
don't don't listen to all these other stupid lemmings. Okay, who are all like rushing to their early death. And of course, an important part of that is the recirculation of sexual energy. I mean, a feeling of youth is basically a feeling of Jing Qi circulating freely in the body. So
Mm.
this brings us back to our theme of the sexual energy.
Yeah.
That's how what what we call youth, what we call long life, is basically cellular sex. The cells are reproducing themselves. Okay,
Yeah.
and
Multiplying.
you have to keep rebirthing yourself. Each cell has to have your whole body is having sex constantly at a cellular level and reproducing itself. That's a sexual process.
Right.
So you have to charge that up and support that, okay, and not wear it down with resistance and negative thought forms, bad diet, bad breathing, bad energy management, everything like that. So
How do you
that's
do that?
yeah.
How do you recharge your cells
Well,
with additional sexual energy?
that's what I teach in my whole system. That I've developed. You first have to lay down a foundation. So a lot of people get hold of my Tao Secrets of Love book. So a lot of people just want to jump right in,
Uh-huh.
and that's usually a formula for failure. You
Yeah.
need to lay down a foundation of managing energy, becoming sensitive to energy, to different organ spirits. So I teach people the inner smile, the 6 healing sounds, and the microcosmic orbit as a prerequisite before they ever start learning any sexual practice.
Uh-huh.
Ideally, they'll go on to a higher level of what we call fusion of the 5 elements, where they manage their emotional body, all of their feelings, how to fuse that in and neutralize negative emotions and become aware of how their whole emotional makeup functions. Because if you can manage even, let's just say 25% of that, you just get a handle on it, your ability to integrate your sexual energy flow with your emotional body and with your physical body is going to be much, much higher.
Yep.
But if you jump in and all of that is unconscious and you try and start to manipulate your sexual energy and push it around and direct it, you're at risk of forcing your sexual energy into pockets of unconsciousness where you could get problems. So this is where sexual energy cultivation is a two-edged sword. It does carry risk. If you do not have a good foundation, those risks become much more evident.
Well, and the way I usually put it succinctly is that if you start manipulating energy, it is based on the assumption that you know where the energy is supposed to go. And how much do we really know where the energy is supposed to go? It's based on our ideas, preconceived notions of right and wrong direction for the energy. And how often are we really right about this type of things?
So these are people who are trying to direct it from their head, is basically what you're saying.
Precisely.
And that's not the way to do it. You need to get a whole body consciousness and be able to move chi internally, okay? So that it's no longer forced by the head, but it's actually internal movement, you know, your will and your organ spirits, and, you know, you start to get into your whole body, and now your whole body is managing the energy field, not just your head.
Right.
And then you can have a much better chance of actually managing this volatile jing chi, this volatile sexual energy. And it will then be much, much easier to do as well if you've learned some basic energy channels and some basic ways to release emotional stress, so that you're not, you know, infusing your sexual energy into negative emotional patterns, which is, you know, the number one problem. Okay.
Yeah, and of course, this is also an interesting question of naturalness. As a Taoist, you probably value being natural. How much do you trust the flow of qi in your body, as opposed to how much do you try to manipulate it to go where you think it should be going, or even letting your whole body be involved in this type of manipulation?
It's another way of describing this is called grounding, okay?
Yeah.
So people who are not grounded are going to have trouble managing this volatile sexual energy, okay? It's going to go flying to wherever, you know, if you're not grounded, it's going to go flying out to wherever. And of course, when you're with a woman, it's the amount of volatility goes up 10 times or 100 times, okay? It's even harder to stay grounded because the excitement level and you know, that volatility factor just goes up astronomically. So what I tell people is you need to practice on your own first, without a partner, okay? It could be a man or a woman. I made a prejudicial statement there, because, you know, gays can also cultivate. A lot of gays and lesbians have also used these practices to increase their health, and, you know, so it's for any person of any sexual orientation, okay? But basically, you should practice on your own first, so that you have a bottom line. You know what your sexual energy is doing, and then when you practice with somebody else and you introduce their energy into the equation, you're able to see the difference, okay? And otherwise, if you have no bottom line, you know, or we can say just really a working self-knowledge of your own sexual energy, how are you ever going to manage it with two people, you know?
Well, and when you're talking about self-cultivation of sexual energy, you have particular practices that you have to offer to your students. Imagine that you have an online course or something of that nature that our listeners perhaps would be able to learn from. Is that right?
Well, I tell people first to get my medical and spiritual Qigong fundamentals, you know, which teaches the orbit, the healing sounds, and it teaches a very powerful form of the orbit that actually captures sexual energy. Okay, this involves this is from Wudong, and it works at the Jing level. Most methods of opening the orbit are just moving qi and breath, but this one actually captures and stabilizes the Jing, so it's much more grounding, and it's I then use that method as part of the sexual energy cultivation as well, how to capture the Jing qi and to redistribute it within the body. So there are a lot of. Then I have courses, of course, on, you know, Taoist Secrets of Love. You know, I call Healing Love. Those are available online, and I also have a week-long training in the summer in North Carolina, which we talked about earlier.
Right.
That's in the second week, you know, usually in the beginning of July, and I always teach that with a woman. So we have a man and a woman to get two sides of the viewpoint and keep the chi balance between, you know, and have both perspectives. And there's a fantastic sharing that goes on with people, actually men and women, being able to hear a variety of viewpoints from the opposite sex,
Right,
on very intimate subjects, you know, about their sex lives and what's going on. That's very, very illuminating for everybody.
And a lot of practices are distinct for a man as opposed to women. For example,
yeah.
Well, what is your opinion, for instance, about the practices such as retention of sperm? There is a lot of
I
talk
teach the
about
methods
that.
on how to do that. But there's very important things. You see, some people, they're Westerners, and they suddenly try and hold on to their semen, and, you know, they use too much force, or if they don't succeed, they feel guilt, and then the sexual energy bonds with their guilt and makes them feel like, you know, sexually neurotic. So there's a lot of risk here that requires careful training and careful instruction. So people should not be jumping into this without that instruction. That's all I can say. And I can't, in this one radio show, of course, give all of that instruction, but I can just say that, the caution is that you really need somebody who understands these problems and how to avoid them and has a lot of experience with that. And your sexual energy is valuable enough that you should invest the time and the energy and the money to get that training if that's something that you really want to cultivate, because it can supercharge just about anything. That sexual energy can go into your business life, can go into your love life, can go into your spiritual meditation. Okay, you can drive this, supercharge your body, and then put it into any level of activity, any level of beingness.
Well, in America, it's popular to bring sexual energy into political life nowadays. Well, and I also have a question about what's the relationship between the practices of retention of semen on one hand and having vasectomy on the other hand.
The distinction here is between the semen that's in the testicles and the energy, okay? Even though you have a vasectomy, you can still pull the energy out of there, okay? It doesn't matter that you tied a knot on the vas deferens, which is the tube that takes the sperm up, to the
prostate.
So the prostate then pushes it out, okay? So by opening up the channels first, okay, and you can take many different channels you can redirect the sexual energy into, up the front channel, up the core channel, up the back channel is fine. They all have their benefits and they're all different strategies, okay? But or you can just gather it into the dantian first. But my point is that this is energetic work. The sperm itself does not need to travel, okay? You can leave the sperm there, but you must move the energy, okay? So that requires energetic training, okay? So it doesn't matter whether you have a vasectomy or you don't. You're still going to have the energy channels to move that sexual energy.
Well, the question, one of my friends brought it up, is that he said, I just practice this Taoist art of retention naturally because I don't lose any sperm because I got a vasectomy.
No, that's not. I'm saying that doesn't mean the energy is moving. It just means it could just be stuck and hanging out, and a little bit of it overflows, like unconsciously, as it does for most people. It's like there's some overflow, but a lot of it's going to remain stuck in the testicles or the lower part of the body. It's not going to circulate up.
Well, does it have anything to do with orgasm focused on the genitals proper? Especially that...
Let's make it clear, the distinction here. Yeah. Ejaculation is different than orgasm.
Well,
okay?
This is why I'm bringing it up.
Right. I'm just saying, we have to be clear here, is that you can practice ejaculation, which is recycling the sexual energy, and still have orgasm, and you're more likely to have either a whole body orgasm or part of a whole body orgasm. But that's instead of having a genital orgasm and squirting it out, your penis, you're directing it up into the body, where it may take a while to build up enough to have a whole body orgasm, but you might have it just in, say, the kidneys or the liver or the heart, or some organ might get charged up first and start to overflow with that energy, okay? Which would give a different type of embodied orgasm, which is not the same as a genital orgasm, but it's still an orgasm. And this is why women have multiple orgasms more easily than men, is because their sexual organs are inside of their body, and so they're more connected to their sexual energy, and it's easier for them to connect that sexual energy to all their organs. And so that's why women are sexually more prone to having multiple or whole body orgasms.
Well, and speaking of multiple orgasms,
exact same skill as women.
Speaking of multiple orgasms, what is the methodology, or how would you, in a nutshell, describe how men develop the ability to have multiple orgasms too?
It's just this training. You have to learn to recirculate that sexual energy into your whole body and build it up and store it. And it's not that you're keeping it from the woman, because no, you're now exchanging it through all the higher body centers with the women, instead of just exchanging it through the penis. Okay? And the same thing for the woman. Instead of just exchanging it through the yoni, she can recirculate her energy and exchange it with the male. So it becomes more of a whole body exchange, and basically what happens, eventually you build up enough energy, you start having subtle body sex or energetic sex, which is far more powerful than physical sex.
Yeah, so, it's an energy exchange rather than a bodily fluids exchange.
Exactly. And in fact, I have found that you could call that soul sex, because I call the energy body is basically the soul. So what I found actually is that once you have cultivated it enough, your whole energy body, just through doing Qigong, sexual energy practices, internal alchemy, meditation, you can have energy. It's actually easier to have energy body sex before having physical sex. In other words, a lot of people think you have the physical sex in order to stimulate the subtle body sex. They think that that comes afterwards. But that is not the case. When you have physical body sex, a lot of the energy is grounded down into the physical body. And yes, the physical body feels charged up. But if you don't have the physical sex, but you just have the attraction and the energy bodies are charged up, you can actually exchange more energy directly, energy body to energy body, than if you had physical sex first.
Right. Well, fascinatingly, that was also one of the scenes in that Marco Polo TV series that I was mentioning just a few minutes ago. And I wonder if it's similar or same, what you just described, to experiencing the astral body sex or the sexual encounters in the astral plane.
Oh, they had astral sex in the movie, in the film?
No, they had the sexual experience without physical penetration, if you will.
Yeah, but is that two people very close to each other or far apart?
Close.
Yeah. So that's much easier to do because your energy bodies are closer. You don't need as much power to project it at a distance. Because for most people, it's like electricity through the power line. They lose power, it becomes weaker the further you try and project it. So most people do not have enough substance in their energy body because they have not cultivated their sexual energy, their Jing Qi, to hold that charge in their energy body. So the more that you've done these sexual practices, the easier that it is for you to do that kind of energy sexual exchange, energy body exchange.
Well, and my question is about the parallels between the sexual energy exchange when it comes to the energy body, and you said that it's similar to soul, and on the other hand, the sexual practices and energy exchange associated with astral experiences, or we can talk about being in a dream body or practice of lucid dreaming or dream yoga.
Yeah, they're very similar.
So, okay? and I know that you
there are different languages and different ways of approaching it and getting to it. Okay. But I like to cultivate it consciously. You know, like I do a lot of dream practice. I'm teaching a workshop on that shortly. And that's your nighttime self, okay? But you want to be able to transfer those skills over to your daytime self. You don't want to just have the nighttime skills. Otherwise, you know, because that's when you have your relationship and your lovemaking and everything, you know, you need to have it consciously, okay?
Right.
So that's why I call lucid living. The lucid living is as important, if not more important, than lucid dreaming.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, if you don't mind, maybe we can preserve this subject to address in our next interview. I think it's a fascinating subject, and a lot of our listeners would love to hear more about your approach to lucid dreaming and lucid living. And I have some experience in that. I'm obviously one of the few teachers of dream yoga in America, so I definitely am very interested in hearing your experience and opinion about these practices. Now, before we conclude our interview, let me ask you one more question. And that is something that Ken Cohen brought up in one of his interviews with me, and that is the question of love. He said, surprisingly, in Chinese literature, there is very little talk about love. And it's such an essential aspect of human experience. What's your perspective on that discrepancy?
Well, I think they just have a different language for it. They don't necessarily call, I mean, ai is the term in Chinese for love, for romantic love, but they often just talk about ren, which is your humaneness, which is like your compassion, which is, you know, basically your love for other humans. They just don't, you know, they, again, it's part of their group consciousness, like, oh, you're a human, I'm a human, you know, we have this bond, you know. They just don't call it, oh, I'm unconditionally loving you, you know. This is just kind of how Westerners wear their individuality on their sleeve, you know, like, oh, I'm an unconditionally loving person, you know. So part of that's just cultural, okay?
Sure.
The other thing is, like, for the Taoists, I mean, it's all sublimated into the language of Qi. So what the Taoists would call unconditional love would just be Yuan Qi. This is just Qi that has not been conditioned. Okay, it's not been polarized. Okay.
Is it similar or identical to the primordial chi?
Yeah, yeah. It's just it's pure, and that's like divine love. It's what we would call divine love. Okay,
Hmm.
that's what they're calling it. Okay, we just are
Tian chi?
labeling our personal experience of the feeling. They are simply talking about, well, here, that's what that chi is,
Hmm.
and it could produce any kind of unconditional experience, any unconditional anything. Okay, because that's what the nature of that energy
Well,
is.
and obviously, love doesn't have to be unconditional. We're talking about love between the two individuals, may or
So,
may
so
not be conditional.
So that primordial chi gets converted into. I have mapped all this out in my book, which is coming out on primordial Tai Chi. The way of enlightened love, and I map it out as coming down to basically there's conditional love, unconditional love, and then pure love, which is the primordial love, basically.
Hmm.
And so that chi comes down that ladder, and the more polarized it gets in our personality, that's what we call conditional love. Okay. And the left brain, right brain, male, female, it's all very polarized, okay? At
Yeah.
the soul level, it's unconditional love, okay? So our soul is there holding the vessel for our personality to have all these experiences. Whether we screw up or we don't, our soul still loves us. It just, it's going to, and we could transfer that same feeling to somebody else,
Hmm.
okay? But that's basically soul love, okay? The Chinese call that the Ling, Ling, okay? And that would be Ling Chi, as opposed to just, ordinary yin yang chi, okay, that's postnatal and it's polarized. And then the West would be called the highest level, the pure love, coming maybe from the oversoul. The Chinese would call that the Da Shen, the great spirit. It's basically the collective spirit. And so that's very unified fields kind of love, where there's no polarity, there's no distinction between you or me, between male or female, between anything, okay, between souls. So I map it out that way. The three types of love, and there's basic three types of chi.
Interesting. So, uh, I would certainly be interested in reading more about that. Perhaps I can ask you to send me an
The
advanced
books,
copy of your book so that I can review it.
the ebook's coming out soon. It'll come out in ebook form, and I'm
Oh,
just polishing up the last few chapters. It's all written already.
oh, so it's going to be in the form of an ebook.
Yeah,
Oh, fantastic. Who's publishing it? Yourself?
myself. Yeah,
Great.
yeah. I don't trust any publisher to distribute it as well as I can, because it's my interest and my word. So I've been working on this book for 4 years. Yeah,
Wow. And you publish most of your materials there, don't you? Home study
that's right.
courses, ebooks,
Everything's
videos.
on my site, healingtaouusa.com. Tao spelled Tao.
Excellent.
Healingtaouusa.com. So yeah, everything's on there, and
And this is also where,
I give a 1 year guarantee, money back guarantee. If someone's not doesn't work for you, you just send it back and you get your money back. I'm very confident of the high quality of my training material.
and this is also where our listeners and viewers can find out about your summertime university programs, right?
Correct.
Wonderful.
They can go to my main site, or they can go to healingtaoretreats.com. Either one.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Michael. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you, and I really appreciate you sharing a lot of wisdom and really tremendous expertise in this field.
My pleasure. We'll see you in the future. Thanks. Bye.
Well, thank you, and I want to remind our listeners that you've been listening and watching the interview with Michael Winn, the founder of Healing Tao USA, on the talk show The Secrets of Qigong Masters, brought to you by Academy of Qidao, the first and only school in the world offering professional education in Tai Chi and Qigong coaching. To find out about the programs offered by Academy of Qidao and to learn how you too can become a certified Qigong or Tai Chi coach, please go to qigongcoaching.com. This show is also brought to you by Mastery Magazine, sponsoring the Summit of Qigong Masters, bringing to you some of the top experts in Qigong in North America under one roof. Please go to qigongmasters.com to enjoy watching the interviews with them,